I'll walk you through the midterm case study, Kill Me Now. This midterm case study is very similar to a question you're going to find in the midterm, so feel free to use this as a reference. As always, in the first instance, what we are doing a project valuation. In this case, our budget for the movie Kill Me Now is $13 million. Now, we are going to look at something called the strike price budget in this case study. And the strike price budget is your actual budget minus any in-kind services, meaning minus anything that you have budgeted as a line item that you do not have to pay for through the course of the production. For example, this could be a deferment, this could be a music investment, we'll get into that in a little bit. It could be someone who says, I'm going to rather participate in profits with you than charging you a fee. These are things that you have cost out as a line item because you need those, but they are given to you for free or deferred. The strike price is important because this is the amount you actually need to finance. So let's look at our project valuation. Our sales estimates are 75% of the budget and not the strike price, because the valuation of the project considers the entire value, and it doesn't really care about what portion of the cost is being deferred or what you're not paying or what you're sharing. It needs to look at the actual cost in order to assess the actual value. So that's why your distribution revenues will always be connected to the actual budget and not the strike price. We're going to get into what is connected to the strike price in a minute. The pre-sales you made is 35% of your budget, so that's $4,550,000. You did receive a 20% upfront payment from your distributors for $910,000 for these pre-sales, and you paid your sales agent when the down payment came in, and you paid him 16% of your down payment, which is $145,600, and that is why you left with the down payment net of $764,400. This is what you have available to your production right now. Now, the unsold rights, if we are deducting our pre-sales from our sales estimates, will be $5.2 million. These are the rights you're still selling. And the US distribution rights are sold after the film is produced, and we are estimating here in our valuation that we're selling about 30% of the budget, which is 30% of $13 million, $3.9 million. So the worldwide gross distribution revenues we are estimating as our project valuation is $13,650,000. Now, the first step we do is we're looking at a bank loan, because again, the pre-sales are just contracts, they're pieces of paper, they don't mean anything for us, they don't help us with funding our production costs unless we can take that piece of paper to a bank and they give us a loan for it. The bank will give us 90% of the value, that is $4,095,000. The bank will then deduct the money we already received in relation to those pre-sales, and that was $910,000. So that leaves us with a gross pre-sale loan amount of $3,185,000. Now the bank will charge an interest of 5%, so we need to deduct the interest, and we're ending up with a net pre-sale loan amount of $3,025,750. Now let's look at our gap loan. Remember, the gap loan is done in relation to the unsold rights, and remember we had $5.2 million in unsold rights. The gap loan will take 50% of that into consideration for the collateral, which also matches our budget cap, which is 20% of the budget for a gap loan. So $2.6 million in this case is our gross gap loan. We're charging an interest, they're charging an interest of 9%, and they also charge a loan fee of $50,000. So we need to deduct all this, and we end up with a net gap loan of $2,316,000. Now we will remember the total gross bank loan, which is the gross pre-sale loan plus the gross gap loan, as combined, summarized for $5,785,000, because that is the actual amount we need to pay back, because in the recoupment is the time we're paying our bank their interest and their loan fees. Now what we have available to cover our production costs would be the net bank loan, and that is $5,341,750. Let's look at a junior loan. This is our mezzanine loan. Now, the mezzanine lender was very specific in saying that he only wants to fund 10% of the actual production cost. The actual production cost means the strike price. So this is an investor who made it very clear that they only want to fund a portion of the money you're actually spending to get the movie made. So that is why the 10% investment is calculated on our strike price. How we get to the strike price, we'll get into in a moment. For now, just know this investment is geared towards the strike price, and interest is going to be charged, a fee is going to be charged, we're deducting everything, and we're getting to 1,116,960. But we'll talk about the strike price in a minute. The mezzanine lender requires a 5% premium, which is paid in recoupment. You remember, interest is always deducted up front, premium is always paid in recoupment. And then the mezzanine lender also wants to participate in the profit, so they get a 5% backend, or called 5% backend profit participation. When we talk about production incentives, you remember that the production incentives only relate to expenses you actually have. Again, that gets us to our strike price because that's the money we're actually spending throughout the production. And the credits and rebates and grants that we're getting from incentivized regions will only ever relate to what we're actually spending in the region. That means we have to calculate our production incentive based on the actual expense, meaning the strike price. Again, we'll define the strike price in a minute, but for now it's 25% of the strike price. So we're getting to pay our 15% fee. There is an executive producer fee that is being requested and a legal fee, and we get to the net incentive amount of $2,658,875. The brand integration is basically a brand that we work with in the movie. Let's say we have Coca-Cola in our movie. They want to support our movie. They want to co-brand the film with us. They want to obviously put their Coca-Cola bottles in the movie, but also be involved in the storytelling and have a brand message that's aligned with our movie message. Now, the brand integration amount, the sponsorship amount, is non-recoupable because you're providing a service. You are doing something for this brand, so that's why you do not have to pay this amount back. So you're going to get $500,000 in brand integration. There is an agency fee applicable because in many cases, brand integration is managed by an advertising agency and they will charge for their work. So they're charging us 25%, which is $125,000. So the net sponsorship amount that we have available to us is $375,000. The branding company, however, will only give us 50% on closing for the production and 50% when we deliver the movie. So right now, all we have available for us to cover production costs is $187,500. For this movie, we were able to do some crowdfunding. Now, crowdfunding is basically equity financing, but in this case, it's non-recoupable equity financing. So it's money that you get that you do not have to pay back. What you do is you give merchandising items, or you allow a visit on the set, or you give them a credit. There are different things that you give away for someone who supports you through crowdfunding. In this case, however, you do not pay it back, so it's non-recoupable. The crowdfunding entity will require a profit participation of 2%, so that is our 2% backend. The crowdfunders give us $250,000, that's an amount. We have to pay an admin fee for the crowdfunding side. That will be deducted of $62,500, and then we end up with $187,500 available for us to cover our production cost. Now we get into the fun of establishing our strike price component. So here's what we have. When you look at the in-kind services, they are defined as crowdsourcing and music investment. So let's understand what crowdsourcing actually is. Crowdsourcing is someone that works on the production, let's say a DP or a wardrobe, a costume designer or a set designer, or maybe a post-production house, or maybe a visual effects house. These are entities that are connected to a line item that you have expensed in your budget. So those are people and entities that cost you money. Now, when they come to you and say, you know what, we're going to be part of crowdsourcing. For example, I'm a DP, I want to work on your movie for free, and I want to be participating in your profits. So that would be a crowdsourced in-kind service. And that's why when we look at our crowdsourcing, we have various people giving us various services that we had budgeted for free, which comes down to an amount of $250,000. Now that $250,000 is not actually handed to us because it's just a service that we don't have to pay for. And because it's a service we don't have to pay for and it's not cash that's given to us, this amount will reduce our cost. It reduces our budget. So the $13 million will now be deducted by 250. So we're ending up with 12,750,000 if I calculate this correctly right now. The music investment is a similar thing because music investment is non-recoupable because the music investor will recoup from music royalties that are paid on the movie. So they're not recouping from distribution revenues, they're recouping from music royalties. So for you, that means this is non-recoupable as it relates to your distribution revenue recoupment schedule. But they're also paying for a budgeted line item, which in this case is your music budget. That includes the music editor, it includes all the music that you're licensing, it includes all the scoring that you're making for the movie, it includes any kind of songs you're producing for the movie. Those rights in connection with the scoring and the songs you're producing are handed over to the music investor and they can now get royalty income from that. Again, this is an amount that covers a production line item. You have two options here. You can take it as an investment and you put it into the covers my production cost component, in which case it would not be deducted from your budget to get to a strike price, or you can basically deal with it as if it is not handed to you as cash and will be paying your production music budget, your music production budget. And the advantage of doing it this way, the advantage of reducing it from the budget in order to lower the budget to arrive at a strike price is that you pay a lower bond fee, because the completion bond fee is paid on the bonded strike price budget. So the lower that number is, the lower your insurance fee will be. So it is ideal for you to say, well, this is paying for a budgeted line item, so I'm just going to reduce this from my budgeted strike price, rather than saying I'm going to take the money because you are going to get an investment and I'm just going to use it for that and put it into the available for covering my production cost component. So you don't want to do that. So you're reducing the strike price. So now our $13 million budget, the $13 million budget is reduced by $370,000. So the strike price budget is $12,630,000. So your mezzanine is going to be calculated towards the strike price budget of $12,630,000, and your production incentive is going to be budgeted towards the strike price of $12,630,000. So that's where those numbers come from. And when we go to the next slide, when we talk about equity, the equity that is provided to you will only be as much as is needed to get to your strike price budget. So you're also saving in equity fees and equity costs and premium and backend by reducing the strike price using those two in-kind service components. So as mentioned before, we have our equity investment here. Of course, we have to pay the equity back because it is recoupable. The equity investor requires a 20% premium. We will deal with that in the recoupment schedule. And the equity investor requires 50% of the percent funded in relation to the budget as backend. Now, even though the equity investor provides the balance that gets you to cover your strike price, the percentage of the backend will relate to the entire budget, because the equity looks at your movie in its entirety and will look at the deferments or any kind of profit participation that you have to pay or any cost that you have to deal later with because of in-kind services. It will look at that as something that will potentially reduce the revenues. So that is why the percentage related to the backend is going to be driven by the equity investment percentage that you're using here, which is $2,373,000 15, that number will stand in relation to the entire budget, and that will be the amount that the investor is financing for you. So in this case, the investor finances 18.25% of your entire budget. And this is very important because 50% of that is going to translate into the back-end profit participation that you will have to pay to the investor later. So he will get 50% of 18 and 18.25% as a back-end profit participation. So you see here, including the equity, we're now hitting our strike price of $12,630,000, and we can now go produce our movie. So now we're looking at our recoupment schedule. First, we have to establish our revenues. So we produced our movie, maybe we screened it at Sundance, and a domestic buyer, maybe Lionsgate, decided, I'm going to buy the US distribution rights from you, and I'll pay you 30% of the budget, which is $3.9 million. We're also selling our international revenues, and we are assuming that we get the international revenues as we projected them on the take price level. So we're now assuming our pre-sales are coming in at $4,550,000, which was the amount that we pre-sold. The unsold rights, again, I assumed that take level to come in at $5.2 million, which we are assuming is going to be the case here. And of course, we have to deduct money that we already received from the distributor, which was the $910,000 they paid for the pre-sale agreements. This was the advance for the pre-sales, the 20%. So we're ending up with international distribution revenues of $8,840,000. Now, if we're adding our international distribution revenues and our US distribution revenues, we end up with total gross worldwide distribution revenues of $12,740,000. Now remember, the brand integration company still owes us money because they have to still pay the second balance that is due when the movie is finished. So now we get the second amount due on delivery of the film for brand integration, and that's $187,500. So our total gross revenues are $12,997,500. Now that we made some money back with our movie, we have to start paying some people back. First in line, we have to pay our collection agent 1% of our entire revenue. And remember, our revenue altogether from international distribution, from US distribution, and from brand integration was $12,927,500. The collection agent now charges 1% of that, which is $129,275. Next in line is the bank. The bank, by the way, is usually before the sales agent or any kind of distribution expenses. So we're now starting to put our ranking in the waterfall together the way it's most likely going to occur when you put together your own project. So the bank is now recouping obviously the gross bank loan. So that means the gross loan amount that includes all the fees we had to pay, the interest, the loan fees, etc. This is the time when we're actually paying them, because we didn't give the bank any money up front. We didn't hand them a check when they gave us a loan. Now here we're paying the interest and the loan fees. So that's why we are recouping the gross bank loan amount of $5,785,000. So now next, our sales agent can charge fees and expenses, and the sales fee and expenses together combined are 16%, and we are paying the sales agent for the international distribution revenues as well as the domestic revenues in this case. Remember before, sometimes you have a talent agency or a domestic distributor sell US rights. The advantage of doing that is that they usually charge you less. A sales agent might charge you more. You can do, by the way, an agreement with the sales agent and say to him, listen, I'd like you to charge me 16% on international, that's fine, but I would also like you to charge me only 5%, which is kind of more industry standard for the US portion. So that's a conversation you can have with your sales agent, and most sales agents will be okay charging you less for the domestic distribution rights revenues. So in this case, we're charging 16% of our total gross worldwide distribution revenues, which were, as you remember, 12,740,000. So 16% of that is 2,038,400. So we're now paying back our gross junior loan or mezzanine loan, which was 10% of the strike price, and that is $1,236,000. Here now we're paying a premium of 5%, so we're paying an additional $63,150. In the last rank, we're paying back our equity. The equity, as you remember, was $2,373,015. We're now paying a premium here of $474,603. It's an industry standard premium of 20%. So all our expenses and repayments together come to $12,126,443. Now what we would do, we would take the expenses and deduct them from our gross revenue, which was $12,927,500. And what we're left with is the net profits of $613,557. And what happens with those net profits is the following. You're now paying back your profit participants. You're paying your back end. We're paying back all the people that we did deals with that had a back end profit participation associated to them. So first, we're paying our equity back. Remember, the equity gave us 18.25%. So now half of that is going to be the profit participation, and that's 9.13%. And that's 9.13% of 613,557. So that's 55,999.23 cents. The mezzanine lender wanted 5% back-end profit participation, so that's 30,667.85 cents. The crowdfunder, remember, they wanted 2%, and the crowdsourcings, they also wanted 2% of the back-end, so they each get 12,271.14 cents. The director wants a back end, and the lead actor wants a back end profit participation, and they each want 5%, so that's 30,677.85 cents. Now, these profit participations are not paid in a ranking system as you saw earlier when we did the recoupment schedule. These profit participations are paid at the same time. So everyone in that list gets their money at the same time from the collection agent who will disperse this. So that means that also the producer who will receive the balance after paying the total profit participation payments of $172,575.06 will receive at the same time the balance of $440,981.94. So they get their producer profits at the same time then everyone else gets their back-end profit participations.